Thank you so much for being on our show. Our first topic, of course, would be the 4th China-Africa Economic and Trade Expo. So first, can you share with us what are the most significant gains during your trip in China?
The expo was really interesting. First of all, very well attended. And I think there was a very powerful story there of development cooperation, a new type of development cooperation. I felt, it was a statement that Africa was ready for a new partnership, and a country like China was responding. The kind of partnership that reframes trade, the concept of trade and investment as, engines of transforming economies structurally. So Africa, as you know, it's been for the longest time just a supplier of raw materials to countries that are, industrializing. But countries have, as a result, deindustrialized, countries in Africa. And this cooperation that I'm hearing through China-Africa partnership is really saying it's time to look at industrialization in Africa, manufacturing, because that's what creates jobs. This is a very young continent with a lot of young people who are now better educated and connected, but the economies are not generating enough jobs, and that's because Africa is not being able to add value to its raw materials. So the conversation in Changsha was really a lot about that, and I think that's it's not new entirely, but in terms of the practical realization in the partnerships, I felt there was more serious consideration for the need for African countries really to be supported to structurally transform their economies.
And what results or outcomes you expect to achieve at this expo?
Around the issue of financing, for instance, if you look at the action plan out of FOCAC, one aspect is related to bringing financial investments, capital, to bear on different sectors that are really fundamental for the continent's development. So I think the conversation this time around was not just about the hardware, the infrastructure, roads and all of that, but the people side, a people-centered approach. And that's why UNDP is very keen on this emerging narrative around development cooperation that China, I think, is leading, which is that we need to look at the human development component of the partnership and ensure that we're having impact. When we spend money, it's having impact on populations, irrespective of where they are. No one should be left behind. It shouldn't just be a partnership that fosters or favors the rich or those who have access. But issues also around sustainability. I think China, as a developing country that has modernized quite a bit, has a lot of experience to share about how to balance development and planet and environmental protection. And I think the whole, conversation around renewable energy, green technologies, how we can develop without sinking our planet, preserving it at the same time for future generations, developing smart technologies. And this was for me really fascinating because I visited some of the industrial parks and the focus on developing smart technologies that are more efficient, lower cost, but also help us to cut the environmental damage that we have when we are doing these big projects.
You mentioned the word modernization many times and think China and Africa together toward modernization. Actually, this expo focus on many key areas like green minerals, infrastructure sector. At expo, we signed 176 projects worth more than 11 billion. So, Ahuna, how would you see the roles of these projects in advancing the Africa's modernization, sustainable development, and economic transformation?
Huge. I really think the impact is going to be incredibly important because the focus on scale, that's important. We have to do things at scale. So the investments have to be about big projects that go to scale, and it has to also cross borders. Africa's future, destiny, is very much intertwined between countries. It's really important to look at integration. And we have 54 countries. Some of them are very small, and their competitive edge is limited. And so this idea that we have an African Union with an Agenda 2063, it's a 1.3 billion people market, and trillions of dollars in value. through the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And the message here was start to look at Africa as a unit, as a union. It's not homogeneous, it's very diverse, but the continent needs to pull its assets together to be competitive and to have impact and to have scale. So these projects, our hope is that the design is such that it's not just country specific, but it's looking at those transboundary, cross-border dynamics. Then of course there's the issue of inclusivity, which we care about as UNDP. Again, the idea that no one should be left behind, and if we're thinking of these mega projects, we think about the impact on communities. And so we emphasize a lot social and environmental studies to make sure that communities don't get compromised, their interests are not compromised, but also that they're the first line beneficiaries of the impact of this project. But I think that the cooperation itself has the right focus in terms of sectors. As I said, industrialization, talent cultivation, making sure that all these young people that we have on the continent are given the opportunity to grow, to nurture their skills and their talents, particularly around digitalization and technology. And so all the areas, I think that I'm looking at, the sectors, hit the point on where Africa needs to really pitch its tent to be able to succeed.
Thank you so much, Ahuna.
Thank you.